Hello, you people interested in non-duality. Welcome to this video where I will talk about the concept of non-self, which is known in Sanskrit as Anatman, which simply means that there is no self, that we don't have a particular self. And this is probably more challenging than the previous video where I talked about impermanence because they are intertwined. You see, the fact that everything is impermanent can lead you maybe to the notion that if everything is impermanent and even I myself am impermanent, then who am I? And this is the real question that is valuable in trying to answer. The one question that really matters. So when we explore, just like we try to explore impermanence in the way that our experience checks for something that is static, that is real. And that is the great illusion, that we think that things are solid, that things are static, that things are permanent. But over time, we just see that some things change faster than others. There's simply a rate of vibration, if you will. So when we do that with ourselves, we realize that, well, everything that I have been has changed too. So my whole identity has changed over time. Who am I? What am I? The one thing that you can check for yourself is that you are you. You have always been you. In fact, you call yourself I or me more than you call your name. And your name is how people know you for. They don't know you as I or me, but you know yourself as I or me. I, the self. But when you start adding titles, descriptions, definitions, stories, and everything else that we create in our minds to define ourselves, we see that they lack substance. You see, they only explain a little aspect of ourselves. And if we can actually say that I am experience, or rather that I am always experiencing reality, then you see that, well, I have experienced that which I have just defined, or I have experienced something that grants me the title of this. But the title is not really me. It's just a small description, a quality of me, if you will. So just like you're not your clothes, but you wear them, you're not your titles, you're not your identities. And even in our own minds, when we try to find the answer to who am I, you end up empty. You find nothing. And so this idea that I am nothing starts to grow, and it starts to become something more real than reality. So we find no self. Anatman, nobody there. It's nobody home. Yet our whole life has been predicated on a self. Me, the person who suffers. Me, the person who enjoys. Me, the person who does things. And so this may seem obvious. And the reason why non-duality is so difficult for people is because it's so obvious and basic that we ignore it. And that ignorance, that very primitive ignorance, which is not ignorance in the sense of dumbed down or stupid, but simply the ignorance that we have on reality. Like when you look at somebody and you ignore them, you know they're there, but you just ignore them. You're not stupid by ignoring them, you just ignore them. And that's what we do. We ignore the fact that we cannot find this self, that we predicate all our vicissitudes of life, that we assign all of our problems to. Say, I have this problem, oh, I do this, I do that, oh, that's me, I did that. See, there is an experience going through you. And because everything is centered around you, you think there must be a me. And so you explore this me. And in our delusion of reality, we contract ourselves into this me. This is me. And you start adding stuff to it. Everything that you add to it is just definitions and concepts and ideas and identities and titles and so on. And so this bag grows, and we self-identify with this bag of things that we have inside. And every time somebody talks about us, well, yeah, I take out this, and I have this opinion, and I have this, and you take out of the bag all these things. That's you. That's the ego self that is growing, it's bloating. But you see, we find the problem that when somebody or something challenges our identities, we find friction, because that same challenging is the nature of reality, wanting to claim the permanence that you are trying to sustain there. Because for you to maintain yourself as a person, you need to hold on to things. What have we learned before? You can't hold on to anything. So why you're holding on to yourself? Of course, you're not holding on to yourself, you're holding on to your self-identities. And those self-identities, they cost you, because realities claim them. And it keeps claiming them. And what do you find? You find that the more you try to identify yourself as a person, as an individual, as a separate part of this universe, the more you suffer, the more you're frustrated. This is a word where we will explore as we continue to lay down the basics of reality. Suffering, frustration. But that's all because we're still holding on to that. Now, you find that when you let go of these identities, when you just don't feel associated, you don't try to grasp at them, and you simply say, yep, those are the things that are there, and I don't feel excited when people call me this, or I don't feel upset by this, because I know that I'm not any of that. Somehow your life it's like a burden that's taken off your shoulders. You just feel much better. You see, everybody in this world is self-identified as something. I'm a man, so I hold on to my manlyhood. Why? Why would you do that? I have my opinions on this, and I think things should be this way. You're holding on to opinions and beliefs of yourself. Why would you do that? Life is going to claim them, and you're going to be frustrated. Life is going to change them. It's going to transform them, and you're not going to like it. Of course, I'm talking to you, the ego, but not the true self, which we'll explore again here in this series. But this is how everything starts. Collecting all these titles and all these names and all these things within the bag of the ego. But when we really go inside and we say, I'm going to honestly explore myself and find out who am I, you find nothing. There's nothing in there. So this whole idea, this is what calls for the Western philosophies to realize that, everything is meaningless. There is no point to this reality. Me, the ego self, has nothing to do. I'm being moved by reality. Determinism is born. Nihilism is explored. And so this is another trick of the mind to explore the drama of the universe. Just like when we see people, because people are like this and they love acting this way. Everything is a painful situation. Everything is sadness. They enjoy that. And so nihilism is the same way. It's exploring that depression of reality, that everything is changing. And now we're identifying with that. We're identifying with the changes of reality because we found out we are nothing. Nothing that we can hold on to is really ourselves. This is where Western philosophies actually fall short. But you see, this leaves you to explore that sensation of being. Now, of course, to the mind, this is meaningless. And so anybody who explores the essence of reality through the mind is going to be disappointed, because it's not going to find anything. But I keep using this analogy, and I think it's very important. Just like the mind cannot count to infinity, the mind cannot know its own essence. Just like the eye cannot see itself. It's made for seeing. And if it could see itself, it would just prevent itself from seeing other things. You see, so the mind cannot count to infinity, cannot understand its own essence. But it knows, it realizes that it's there because that essence exists. That essence is what we call consciousness. That is what we call the Atman, the true self. But it's not that you, the ego, now discover that you are consciousness. And so I am consciousness. That's another trick of the mind. The ego wanting to hold on to something else. I am consciousness. You see? This is where the mind simply needs to stop. And in this stopping, this cessation of the revolutions of the mind, you become experience. What you have always been. But you have been falsely believing that you are something that is happening in the impermanence of reality. And that impermanence of reality, you have been trying to hold on to yourselves mentally. Because physically we explore that we can. But mentally, we can create the illusion that we can. But that brings up the emotions, the suffering, the frustration. Because we know that we created something that is not true. We have that gnosis, that inner knowing that we have created something that is not true. And this is the reason why we fall in depressions and become anxious and have all sorts of sadness of life, because we think we are that. And so a mind that is altered or exacerbated into the illusion of impermanence will continue to suffer, because that's just what happens. You try to hold on to the river and you can't, and you keep doing it and doing it and doing it and you can't. All that happens is water flowing. Can't stop it. That's the moment where you surrender to everything, and in that moment you wake up and you see that you never existed. So this, in a very brief way, is what Anatman means. It is the realization that you, as a conceived self, do not exist. And all your life you have been building upon this self, and it comes crashing down, and you keep building upon it, and it keeps crashing down. It's only to show you your true self. It's for you to realize that the only thing that is worth exploring is, who am I? And in that exploration is you find that, I won't even call it a name, because if I say you're pure experience, then the mind would say, well, I'm pure experience, or I'm pure consciousness. The mind will always try to hold on to any concept. So I would invite you not to explore intellectually anything, but just see your experience. And that's it. It's very simple. Like I said, non-duality to me is the beautiful way in which we can explore our own experience of reality without any complex metaphysical jargon that we're so used to, and that I am actually guilty of talking and exploring within the law of one, which is, it's helpful to explore reality, but it's not helpful to define ourselves unless we get into the mystical teachings of the law of one, which is really what I'm interested in. And of course, that's why I'm doing this non-duality series, because we need a practical mean to realize who we are. Aside from all the studies and everything that we explore, is something that is really practical for us. So I hope you enjoyed this video, that this made sense to you, because that's my point. My point is always to simplify things with things you can check in your own reality and that you can prove, and not just believe somebody on YouTube who said it, or read a book that said something and you believe that. Believe your own experience, believe who you are, and keep enjoying life, because that's what all we are here for. We're all here to enjoy life. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next video.